The pharaoh who refused to die. The past holds secret, and we're here to uncover them. Join us! For over 3,000 years, the pharaohs of ancient Egypt chased one ultimate dream: immortality. To achieve this, they each followed different paths, using their own unique ways. But one of them, perhaps the greatest of all, went further than anyone else. His name, Ramses. In this episode, we'll take you on a thrilling journey to explore his tomb and temple, uncovering the secrets behind his relentless pursuit of eternal life. Egyptian civilization took nearly 3,000 years to rise, reach its peak, and eventually fade. Yet it managed to preserve much of its grandeur, recording its history in majestic monuments and passing down knowledge across generations. Some figures from this era were seen as more than human. Many were considered living gods. The pharaohs ruled with divine authority, but only a few left truly unforgettable legacies. Among them, one stood out for his godlike achievements: Ramses I. His tomb, located at the entrance of the Valley of the Kings, was the first of its kind in the area. Covering around 686 square meters, it remains the largest tomb in the valley. Ramses ruled Egypt for an impressive 66 years and died in 1213 BCE at the age of 90. Like other great rulers of his time, he ordered the construction of a grand tomb to reflect his greatness. Tomb KV7 is known for its complex structure, including a burial chamber supported by 8 pillars. Though many have been damaged over the centuries, it was intended to remain a secret resting place, never to be disturbed. But Ramses I was always determined to leave his mark. Everything he did, whether in politics, religion, society, or the economy, was aimed at securing his legacy. One of the greatest symbols of this quest for immortality is the Temple of Abu Simbel. Ramses I had it built not only to showcase his power, but also to intimidate anyone beyond Egypt's borders. The temple is nothing short of spectacular. Its massive facade is 33 meters high and 38 meters wide, featuring 4 colossal statues of Ramses I himself, each standing over 20 meters tall. Over the centuries, the temple was buried under desert sands and forgotten until 1813, when Swiss explorer Jean-Louis Burckhardt rediscovered it. Still, it wasn't until 1817 that Italian explorer Giovanni Belzoni managed to open its entrance. Today, visitors can walk through its grand halls and corridors, richly decorated with epic battle scenes showing Ramses I defeating his enemies and expanding his empire. At the very back lies the holiest area, the sanctuary, where 4 statues stand side by side: the pharaoh and the gods Ra-Horakhti, Amun and Ptah. To further reinforce his divine status, Ramses I had his own image carved next to these gods, presenting himself as a god on earth. In 1960, a major challenge arose. The construction of the Aswan Dam threatened to flood Abu Simbel. To save it, engineers carried out one of the most incredible rescue missions in history. Between 1964 and 1968, the temple was carefully cut into 1,500 pieces, moved and reassembled 65 meters higher than its original spot, preserving its exact orientation. Before the move, an amazing event happened twice a year, on February 22nd and October 22nd, when sunlight would shine directly onto the sanctuary's statues. After relocation, the light now hits them a day earlier.
Next to the main temple, Ramses I also built a smaller one dedicated to the goddess Hathor and his beloved wife Nefertari. This was a groundbreaking move. It was the first time in Egyptian history that a queen was honored with a temple of such importance. The love between Ramses and Nefertari was clear. He had statues of her made equal in size to his own, showing just how much she meant to him. In the Valley of the Queens, Ramses I built a stunning tomb for Nefertari that many consider the most beautiful in all of Thebes. Discovered in 1904 by archaeologist Ernesto Schiaparelli, the tomb still preserves vivid colors and murals depicting the queen's journey to the afterlife. These detailed paintings show her passing through the underworld, protected by goddesses like Isis and Nephthys, before transforming and joining Osiris.
But Ramses II didn't stop with just funerary temples. He left his mark on Thebes too, especially in the massive temple complexes of Karnak and Luxor. At Karnak, the great hypostyle hall features 134 enormous columns, each over 10 meters wide and more than 24 meters tall. He also commissioned the Great Sacred Lake, an essential part of religious rituals, symbolizing the primeval ocean of creation. In Luxor, Ramses's legacy is even more evident. The entrance to the temple was once flanked by 6 massive statues of him, 4 seated and 2 standing, though today only fragments remain. The temple's facade is carved with scenes from the Battle of Kadesh, one of the most epic battles of the ancient world, where Ramses I fought the Hittites. More recently, an unexpected discovery was made inside the Abu al-Hajj Mosque, built over part of the Luxor Temple. In 2007, a fire revealed intact carvings of Ramses II that had been hidden for centuries beneath layers of plaster. Ramses II's desire to be remembered forever is reflected in every monument he left behind. Among his greatest achievements was the Ramesseum, his mortuary temple. Though it was originally designed for rituals in his honor after death, it also served as a center for worshipping his image. Ironically, Ramses I's temple met the same fate as many others. Later rulers dismantled parts of it to reuse the materials. Even so, the ruins still impress visitors today, reminding them of a king who dared to defy time itself. Standing before the colossal statue of Ramses I, originally over 1,000 tons and transported from Aswan down the Nile, it's easy to imagine how obsessed ancient Egyptians were with immortality. Every carved stone, every engraved scene was part of Ramses II's efforts to preserve his legacy, not just as a king, but as a timeless legend. Ramses I, also known as Ramses the Great, was one of the most powerful and influential pharaohs of ancient Egypt. His 67-year reign left a lasting mark on history. One of his most impressive contributions was the construction of the court of Ramses I, a vast area filled with significant statues, including one of him depicted as Osiris. Sadly, many of these statues, including a majestic seated figure that originally stood 17 meters tall, have been damaged over time. Still, the ruins clearly show Ramses II's intense drive to immortalize himself, creating awe-inspiring monuments that celebrated his greatness. If you ever get the chance to visit these sites, standing near one of these massive statues makes you feel tiny in comparison. It's a powerful experience that reveals Ramses's unending desire to be remembered forever. He actively promoted his image all over Egypt, turning it into a symbol of strength and authority, etched into every temple, every statue, every wall built in his name. Ramses I was born around 1300 BCE in the city of Avaris, a place known for its rich traditions. He didn't just inherit the throne from his father, he had big ambitions for Egypt's future. Early in his reign, he made a bold decision to build a brand new capital in the Nile Delta called Ramesses. Although little of the city's former glory remains today, its ruins lie buried beneath farmland. The name Ramesses means House of Ramses, and it truly was his home until his death. But why build a city so far from the older capitals? There were several reasons. First, he wanted to connect more deeply with the region his family came from. Second, there was a clear political goal to extend Egypt's influence in the Middle East, especially in areas that are now Syria and Palestine. And finally, there was a strong economic motive. He wanted control over the trade routes both by land and sea, linking Egypt with distant regions like Turkey, Greece, and even modern-day Afghanistan. Thanks to the dedicated work of archaeologists, especially the German expert Edgar Pusch and his team, we've been able to piece together a clearer picture of what Ramesses was like at its peak. It spanned nearly 30 square kilometers, making it one of the largest cities of the ancient world, rivaling even Rome at its height. But Ramesses didn't last long. As Ramses II's reign neared its end, much of the city's construction materials were taken to build a new capital, Tanis. This decision was deeply rooted in religion. The destruction of Ramesses and the rise of Tanis were driven by growing tensions between the priests of Amun and the followers of Set, two rival gods representing opposing forces in Egyptian mythology. Over time, Amun's followers gained the upper hand, and this religious shift led to the founding of Tanis. But Ramses III's legacy went far beyond just physical monuments. It inspired deep admiration and left a lasting impression on Egyptian culture. Ramses and a pharaoh remembered. Ramses, I was deeply admired by his dynasty. As the son of Ramses I, the founder of the 19th dynasty, he took it upon himself to carry on the legacy of his ancestors and maintain Egypt's political and military stability. From a young age, Ramses showed incredible skill as a military leader. Even during his father's reign, he led military campaigns and contributed to major construction projects. So, when his father died, Ramses was more than ready to take the throne and guide Egypt into a new era of greatness. As a clever ruler, Ramses I knew that building monuments alone wouldn't be enough to make his name last forever. He understood that to secure his legacy and immortality, he needed to project his image and power throughout Egypt and even beyond. That's why he often portrayed himself as a young, bold warrior, ready to fight and defend his people. The statues created during his reign reflect this powerful image. However, his real appearance, as revealed by his carefully preserved mummy, didn't quite match the idealized sculptures. Still, the mummification of Ramses I was done with remarkable precision to ensure his soul could live on in the afterlife. He died at the age of 90, and his mummy was discovered in 1881 after it had been hidden away to protect it from tomb robbers. During his rule, Ramses faced many challenges, one of the most notable being the famous Battle of Kadesh against the Hittites. While things started off in his favor, the situation shifted and the battle ended inconclusively. But Ramses was smart. He turned to diplomacy and ended up creating the first known peace treaty in history. This treaty, which ended a long-standing conflict with the Hittites, was carved into the walls of the Abu Simbel temples. It was also sealed with a royal marriage. Ramses married the daughter of King Hattusili III, cementing peace between the two powers. Ramses III's greatness wasn't just about battles and buildings, it lived on through his massive family. He reportedly had over 100 children and worked hard to ensure his descendants would carry on his legacy. One powerful example is Tomb KV5 in the Valley of the Kings, one of the largest tombs ever discovered, which he likely intended for his sons. However, many of their tombs still haven't been found, one of the most fascinating mysteries in Egyptian archaeology. After a long and impactful reign, Ramses I passed away, leaving behind a stable and prosperous Egypt. His son Merneptah inherited the throne but faced the daunting task of living up to his father's legacy, a challenge he unfortunately didn't quite meet. Still, Ramses I's memory lived on, not just through his temples and monuments, but because he succeeded in making himself more than just a king. He became a god in the eyes of his people, worshipped and honored for generations. This divine legacy was closely tied to the rise of Amun, the supreme god in the Egyptian pantheon. Amun originally was a minor, almost forgotten deity, but during the Middle Kingdom, and especially under the 18th dynasty, theologians gave him a new role as the invisible, transcendent god who ruled all others. At the same time, Egypt's wealth, especially in Thebes, was growing thanks to the expansionist policies of the pharaohs. That wealth strengthened Amun's cult and its powerful priesthood. Eventually, Amun merged with the sun god Ra to become Amun-Ra, a cosmic deity representing both the sun and the divine forces that govern time and the universe. This idea of unity between visible and invisible power was reflected in temple architecture, especially in places like Karnak. Temples like Karnak were carefully designed to create a spiritual experience. As you walk deeper into the temple, moving from bright open spaces into darker, more enclosed rooms, the changing light made you feel like you were crossing from the human world into the divine. The Great Hypostyle Hall at Karnak is one of the most striking examples of this. Originally started by Amenhotep III and completed by Ramses I, the hall's massive columns and intricate layout were meant to awe and inspire, giving visitors a glimpse of eternity. The spiritual power of Luxor and Karnak temples. The Great Hypostyle Hall in Karnak has 134 massive columns arranged in 14 rows. Walking through it creates a strong sense of awe and grandeur. The way sunlight filters through the limestone windows splits the space into light and shadow, making the columns seem even taller. This design wasn't just for show, it was meant to lift the spirit and remind visitors they were in the presence of something divine, beyond human understanding. Imagine entering this space with the ceiling open to the sky and natural light pouring between the pillars. It would have felt like a transcendent experience. The constant play of light and shadow created an atmosphere full of mystery and power. The carvings on the columns and the architectural details were filled with symbols reflecting Egyptian beliefs about the universe and the gods. These temples weren't just places to worship, they were also centers of political and economic power. The relationship between the pharaohs, the priests, and the gods was vital for keeping the universe in balance. Priests made sure the divine order continued by feeding and dressing the statues of the gods, praying and performing rituals to maintain harmony between the heavens and the earth. In this way, they acted as intermediaries between the gods and humans, ensuring creation continued without disruption. At Karnak, for example, there's a sacred lake that symbolized the primeval waters of chaos from which the world was created, according to Egyptian mythology. This lake was seen as a source of life. Priests also used it for purification rituals, washing themselves in its waters before beginning their daily ceremonies. The movement of the sun structured these rituals into three important parts of the day: dawn, noon, and sunset. Each moment represented a different phase in the relationship between the gods and the human world. The rituals culminated in what's known as the solar rebirth, when the statue of the god was exposed to the sun's rays, believed to recharge its divine energy and keep the cycle of life and death going. This idea of renewal was also linked to the renewal of royal power. A prime example was the Opet festival, when the god statues were carried in grand processions from Karnak to Luxor Temple. During these festivals, the gods were transported in sacred boats, followed by crowds of worshippers celebrating the union of the divine and the human worlds. Luxor Temple, specifically the temple of Amun's consort, Mut, was where this divine marriage was symbolically reenacted every year. The temple became a stage for this sacred union, representing fertility and the continuation of life. This transformation turned the temple into a space where divine power could be felt and witnessed by all those present. Like many other Egyptian temples, Luxor wasn't just a building, it was a miniature version of the cosmos. It symbolized the harmony between gods and people. Every stone, column, and carved scene carried deep meaning, expressing the values and beliefs of a civilization that saw divine power as the foundation of universal order. Luxor Temple holds secrets that stretch back thousands of years. It was built as a sacred place for worship and celebration, and became the stage for many of the key rituals of Egyptian culture. One of the most fascinating parts is the birth room, a mysterious chamber that represents the divine origin of the pharaoh. Tucked away in the inner part of the temple, this room was where one of the most important rituals took place, the ceremony that confirmed the king as the son of the god Amun-Ra. The story of this divine birth is carved in a series of stunning reliefs on the temple walls. It starts with the god Amun choosing the woman who will give birth to his divine heir, always the queen of Egypt. The god Thoth, depicted with the head of an ibis, is the one who guides Amun to the royal chambers. There, he wakes the queen with his heavenly perfume, and they share a sacred union. Soon after, Amun instructs the potter god Khnum, who is known for shaping human beings, to form the new king on his potter's wheel. Khnum doesn't just create the future pharaoh's body, he also forms his ka, the vital spiritual essence that ensures the continuity of royal power. The birth is celebrated in the presence of several gods, emphasizing how sacred the new king truly is. In the upper register of these scenes, you can see this divine narrative unfold, told in detailed carvings that highlight just how seriously the Egyptians took the connection between their rulers and the gods. The journey through Luxor Temple, a living record of Egypt's history. Inside the king's purification chamber, all the gods gather to receive him. The heart of the Luxor Temple, originally dedicated to the god Amun by Pharaoh Amenhotep III, went through several changes over the centuries. One of the most significant was made by Alexander the Great, who built a shrine for the sacred bark, a ceremonial boat for the god, and altered the layout to connect this space to the statue room of the god. Even after the Greek conquest, the temple remained important during the Pharaonic era and continued to hold significance into the Greco-Roman period. When Alexander took over Egypt, he declared himself pharaoh and embraced Egyptian religion, portraying himself on the temple walls in the traditional poses of worship. Luxor Temple is a rare witness to thousands of years of layered history, showing the influence of many different civilizations. During the Roman era, the temple was turned into a center for imperial worship. Rooms were sealed off, murals were painted over the walls, and the space became part of a Roman military camp. When Christianity arrived in Egypt, churches were built inside and around the temple. Then in the 11th century, a mosque was built right on top of one of the old churches, marking yet another chapter in this long story. Back in ancient times, every Egyptian city was believed to be under the protection of Taweret, the Eye of Ra, and each city's name carried deep meaning. But today, more than 3,000 years later, the ancient city of Thebes no longer exists as it once did. On the east bank of the Nile, where the city of the living once stood, the temples of Karnak and Luxor still remain. Over time, later civilizations reinterpreted and repurposed these sacred spaces, or abandoned them altogether. Only in the last century have major restoration efforts begun to bring them back to their former glory. On the west bank of the Nile lies the city of the dead, home to the tomb of Thebes. This area feels wrapped in mystery. While the temples were public spaces, the tombs were private and off-limits. Ironically, today these once secret places are visited by crowds of tourists every year, once again shifting their meaning, but without losing their magic or aura of mystery. Even though ancient Egypt has vanished as a civilization, its impact still resonates. One of the most mysterious pharaohs in Egyptian history is Akhenaten, sometimes referred to as the heretic pharaoh. He challenged the powerful priesthood and introduced a monotheistic religion centered on the sun disk god Aten. This religious revolution brought sweeping changes, including moving the capital to a new city called Akhenaten. Along with his queen Nefertiti, Akhenaten tried to reshape Egyptian spirituality and break from traditions that had defined the country for centuries. But after his death, Akhenaten was erased from official history. His name was scratched off monuments, his images were destroyed, and his city was dismantled piece by piece. His body disappeared, and his final resting place remains a mystery. In 1907, archaeologists uncovered Tomb Cave E5 in the Valley of the Kings. Inside, they found artifacts possibly linked to Akhenaten and his family, including gilded panels and canopic jars. The most intriguing discovery was a gold and semi-precious stone-covered sarcophagus, but the name had been deliberately erased. Part of the funeral mask was also missing, deepening the mystery of who was buried there. For years, experts have debated whether the remains belong to Akhenaten, another royal figure, or someone entirely unknown. The uncertainty reflects the complexity of Akhenaten's legacy. He wasn't just a king, he was a visionary who challenged the very foundations of his empire. His devotion to one god and his attempt to spark a spiritual revolution still fascinate scholars today. Akhenaten's story remains one of the most compelling chapters in ancient Egyptian history. He was a dreamer who dared to defy tradition and create something entirely new. He left behind Thebes, the traditional capital, and founded a revolutionary new city devoted to the worship of Aten, the sun disk. He chose a strategic location now known as Tel El Amarna between Thebes and Memphis, two major cities in ancient Egypt. In the 4th year of his reign, Akhenaten arrived and declared, "Aten has commanded me." Subscribe to uncover more forgotten histories with us, like